our moderator. Caroline Brossard was raised in the Bronx and spent more than 2 decades working in public finance, in investment banking, government, and higher education. Her lived experience with institutional bias and observations of the lack of diversity and inclusion in leadership fueled her desire to become a certified diversity and inclusion professional.
I'm Caroline Brossard. I also have 2 sons at the Alameda Unified School District, a 10-year-old who's in 5th grade and a 6-year-old who's in 1st grade.
Still not loud.
I will project more. Is this better? Yeah. I feel like I'm yelling, but I will do it.
Teacher voice. That's teacher voice.
Thank you so much. I have to say that this film is probably one of the most powerful films I've ever seen in my entire life. And it really spoke to my lived experience, given that both of my sons struggle to learn how to read. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I will try to keep it very close to my mouth like this and speak louder. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate it. So without further ado, I want to welcome and extend a sincere thank you to our panelists this evening. And I will ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Kareem Weaver. Hopefully that microphone works.
Hi, I'm Kareem Weaver. Longtime educator, teacher, principal, central office person, and now I work with FULCRUM, which is a nonprofit that really looks to push on literacy practices and make sure it aligns with science, and also with the
Hi there, I'm Kathy Futterman. I am adjunct faculty at Cal State East Bay in the Departments of Teacher Education and Educational Psychology. I'm a dyslexia specialist and ed specialist with Mount Diablo Unified School District. I helped to write our California Dyslexia Guidelines, and I was also an appointed board member for our California Comprehensive Literacy Plan, and I have a private practice as an educational therapist as well.
You got to be even closer to the mic than you can. It's hard to hear in the back, so like almost touching the top of the microphone.
Is it okay if we just speak like this?
Yeah, you know, yeah. And can people move up? We were talking.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me if I do that? Yeah. Hi, my name is Pirner. I'm a TK kindergarten teacher and and STEAM lead at Korematsu Discovery Academy in Deep East Oakland. It's a full-service public community school, and this is my 11th year teaching. Every year has been in kindergarten except one, and it's my 7th year with Korematsu Discovery Academy. Sorry, I write notes because it's really hard for me to talk about myself. I work also with the Oakland Unified School District's STEM department to amplify science through meaningful connections to math, literacy, community, and identity. So that's me.
Hello, my name is Tandra DeBose, and first and foremost, I'm a parent of a child with special needs, or as some refer to it, with a disability. My child is 19 years old now. She is nonverbal and doesn't have the ability to balance. However, the doctors said that when she was 5, if she wasn't walking by the time she was 5, she wouldn't probably ever walk. And I'm proud to say, just at the time of the pandemic, when she turned 17, she started walking. And my daughter is walking independently now. So I'm so proud. She's our miracle child. And I feel like I needed to say that because we never should give up hope, because you never know what can happen for your child. But my day job, my second day job, is that I am a program manager for the Family Resource Navigators organization, and we provide parent-to-parent support and services to help guide and coach our parents to feel more empowered, and that to know that they are the best advocate for their child, and to be the best advocate for their child. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis now. I'm the program manager there.
Thank you all so much. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that today is Kathy's dad's birthday. So I want to just give her a special thank you for being here with us this evening and wishing her dad a happy birthday. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, so before we get started with questions for the panelists, I would like to ask you all, can I get a show of hands for the folks who do not understand what the science of reading is and how it differs from what is currently being provided in our classrooms? Does anyone feel like they want the science of reading explained? Or did the film kind of make this all very crystal clear? I see no hands, so that means that the film did an amazing job in explaining the difference between the science of reading. Okay, so now that we all have an understanding, how can we push forward to provide structured literacy or the science of reading in our community? And I guess I'll start with Kareem to answer that question.
How can we push to make sure structured literacy is provided to everyone in the community? You got to advocate. You really have to be on top of things. And so the school board is responsible for making sure that kids receive a free and appropriate public education. What's appropriate? How do you get the greatest number of kids reading? Research consensus is very, very clear on it. It's not even up for debate anymore. But a lot of times, school boards don't manage to that. You know, is literacy a part of the superintendent's evaluation? How is middle management, how is the district staff organized in a way that supports literacy? Is the contracted prep time aligned to the amount of time it takes to fully implement the reading curriculum? Like, I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of things. Because if you don't have the nuts and bolts of things in place, then people do what they have to do to make it. And so those are some of the things that we can do, but we also have to start advocating together as opposed to separated by race, class, whatever else. We have to go together. Those are some things.
Thank you so much, Kareem. Kathy, would you like to add to that? How can we push forward to provide structured literacy or the science of reading in our community?
Sure, so just to add to what Kareem was talking about, and the other key piece is our teacher training, especially at our institutions of higher ed. And the very good news is that there was recent legislation passed here in California to add a whole component to what's called our teacher performance expectations that's focused entirely on literacy instruction and intervention, which includes that teachers need to be responsible for understanding the California Dyslexia Guidelines, being able to identify dyslexia, understanding what structured literacy is, and there's specific components of the science of reading embedded within there. So that's fantastic news, and that's huge. That's what's in writing, so now it's going to be the actual implementation part, making sure that we have professors at the institutions of higher ed who are trained in order to then train our teachers. And then, you know what, we're seeing in the classroom as well. I'm on the special ed side of things. That's just my area and my role. And there's continued issues with having appropriate curricula, and even if curriculum has been chosen, making sure that teachers have all the pieces and the components, and then the ongoing training, and they need ongoing training.
I would agree with everything that's been said, and just from a teacher standpoint, I would push our districts for those supports that we need to make it happen. We can say a lot, like we're going to implement this, but we need the supports in place and the time and the prep in place to make it actually truly happen equitably across all sites. Seek out and advocate for high quality paid trainings on the science of reading, not just from our district, from what they've learned coming down, really pushing for high quality, or Gillingham, for example, things that we can't afford out of our own pocket, but that we know make a difference for children. So really advocating around that and seeking out partnerships that we can work together to really push for our school boards and local and state governments to make that happen for us. And then pushing through our voting for funding to make it happen equitably at all sites. And then getting on the same page as a team at your school. That was one thing that we've really worked hard at our site to get all on the same page around the science of reading. What do our sound walls look like in the classroom? How are we implementing high frequency words? Because we know not all curriculums are going to be perfect. So really working as a team to go through the curriculums and make sure it aligns to the full scope of science of reading. And then reach out and invite families into the classroom. Like you said in the documentary, it really truly is a partnership between home and school, and literacy and learning starts at home. So bringing families in right away, making our spaces an open and welcoming place for families to come ask questions and not feel like they're not invited into our group. So,
You were reading my mind because I said the things that Kareem had said in the film about parents. Parents need to be involved. And in this process, ask questions about what their child is learning and what the development is for their child. If they need to ask for assessments or evaluations to be done, they need to ask those questions. If you have an IEP, that's one of the questions that can simply be asked. If a parent asks the question, they have to answer it, and they have to do the work. So be sure that you know you are the voice of your child, and you should ask for that assessment and those evaluations whenever possible.
Thank you so much. To the extent that you haven't already answered this, what can I, as a parent or as a teacher or as a community member do? Sure. What can I, as a parent, as a teacher, or as a community member do?
Do in terms of advocating for the science of reading for all students. Well, Kareem mentioned your school board meetings. I know through Decoding Dyslexia California, that's been a huge way that we've been able to make a difference. Is by attending and speaking at school board meetings, participating in your community action committees through your schools, volunteering, and then for teachers, finding out on their own as much as they can about the science of reading. There's a lot of public information out there, but making sure that you're tapping into reputable organizations. But we really want it to be coming up, obviously from the schools and from the state as well.
Maria, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I know that as teachers we have a lot already on our plate, but there is, and parents and admin, we all have a lot of things on our plate, but there are things that we can start doing straight away. So I'm actually more of a science background myself, but I really love the work by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. She works specifically in ocean justice, but she has kind of a Venn diagram that she uses of what I can do to get started. So you make basically 3 circles of what's needed in our community right now, what audience am I trying to reach, and what are the strengths that I have that I can bring forward, and then where that overlaps is where you should start. So that's what I would say, start with what you can have the capacity to do, and look at what's needed, and just start with the small steps and work up and find partnerships.
I would just say one of the things that I didn't mention is that Family Resource Navigator specifically helps families that have children with disabilities, medical challenges, developmental delays, and a gamut of issues that a child may have. We support them by referring them to places like the Regional Center. But if you're looking for some assistance or some support, you can call an agency like ours that will be there to help navigate this process for you. If you need support with an IEP, you can ask for help. You don't have to do it alone. There are legal ramifications like organizations like DREDF that can help support you with the legal side of it. So just know that you're not alone. You're out there, people out there that are here to support you.
Kareem, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I'll just say that we have to remember this is not tea time. You know, this is a crisis. When I say, so we also do work in prisons. We do work in juvenile facilities. It's filled with people who can't read. The statistics mask the reality. As bad as the stats are, you know, you saw it for black kids and Latino kids, then you saw white kids, 75%, something like that. They're like, oh, well, that's great. No. So a lot of folks leave the public system. Usually around middle school, around there, they just tap out. Or they get private tutoring. It's a crisis for everybody. And I can't emphasize that enough. Just because some folks don't get the private, that doesn't mean that they want to spend that money. It doesn't mean that their family can withstand that type of economic hit. We just kind of, like, we have this tendency in education to kind of go around it like it's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's an economic issue. All the businesses that aren't getting started, the cures that aren't being discovered, whatever. I mean, I remember when my godson went to Kennedy High School over in Richmond and he played varsity. The best game was during halftime. That's when all the ineligible kids would come out and play. But they didn't have the grades because they really couldn't read, so they couldn't be on the team. And this affects every aspect of life, and it's so easy to just have business as usual. So I would say the first thing we got to do is just wake up. Just wake up. This collective speaking. We can't watch enough cable TV. We can't listen to enough ratchet music. There's a lot of different distractions that's going on out there. Like my grandpa used to say, you ever notice how we always start our wars right around football season? He said it's not an accident. And we are a distracted citizenry, and this is no different at all.
Thank you so much. So spot on. I am going to move on to our audience questions now. The first one being, in our district, we need help with teachers who are loath to change. What are some strategies to get teachers to agree to learn new methods? And I want to kick that one to Maria first, if that's okay.
I would say just making it an open space where we, showing documentaries like this, for example, as part of our professional developments, making it a paid opportunity to go to these trainings, so that way we can be educated in the science of reading. I was lucky that I went to one of the states, I went to Minnesota, and I was taught the science of reading in my university because I chose pre-primary as one of my specialties. If I had not, I would never have heard anything about open and closed syllables or the 5 pillars, but I did have that opportunity. And I think it takes a lot for teachers to reflect. We have to reflect on what we're doing, and if what we're doing isn't working, we have to seek out answers as to why it's not working. And that can be part of our admin, making space for our professional learning communities to really talk about these issues of why it's not working without it being a punitive thing where you feel a lot of pressure, but more of this isn't working and we need to come together to figure out why. As a team, not of like, I'm gonna come and observe that you're following this to fidelity. We need to make the space a little more open than that, a little bit more about integrity over fidelity to a specific curriculum. Because we know curriculums come, they go. There's pieces that follow the science of readings and there's pieces that don't. Even the curriculum that now is in Oakland Unified still has a piece of it that follows the whole word methodology versus orthographic mapping for high frequency words. So that's part of partnerships with communities such as FULCRUM, like reaching out. Like we're lucky that our admin does reach out and gets into the community, and that's something that we just need to do systematically. I think teachers are open to change, but they've also in some ways been taught one way, and a lot of times in some trainings, like we hear a lot of like, we're the experts, but we need to kind of step back from that. And we're lifelong learners, all of us, and we can always learn something new. If something goes against what we've learned and it's proven fact, then we need to shift and adapt to that. that was kind of a rambling answer. I hope there's...
It was a fantastic answer. Thank you, Maria. Kathy, anything you would like to add? Kareem? Tandra?
No.
We'll move on to our next question, which is, what do you say to a district that has adopted a systemic phonics program, such as Fast Track Phonics, but maintains Lucy Calkins as its core program? What's wrong with this picture?
I'll take this. All right, so this is common. You know, the whole, the phrase, put lipstick on a pig? That applies to that. Now, I know people who swear by Lucy Calkins, swear by it. My kids have never done such wondrous things when we use Lucy. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm talking about how do we get the greatest number of kids to read. You do that in tier 1. You do that in a regular classroom instruction. See, a lot of these programs, it's like if you can't learn it in the first place, then when you go to the next level, an intervention they call it, then we're going to give you this other program.
Right.
Or if that doesn't work, then you're going to go to number 3, which is special ed, resources like that. So it's like, no, it should be upfront. Kids have a right to a free and appropriate public education. So if you're serious about getting the greatest number of kids to read, you start that in regular classroom instruction. You heard the superintendent here earlier. I do know her. We've known each other for a long time. I love Anika. But here's the other thing, is that we are so busy being friends with each other, we oftentimes don't want to tell the truth to each other. Mm-hmm. Education has that real bad. You know, to be in the in crowd, to be accepted in the lunchroom, then you got to kind of go along. Man, our kids are getting chewed up and spit out, and if you're not going to stand up for that, then you can go to the party at Christmas time or whatever, but what is good is it doing to kids? So we got to be willing to stand up when things need to be stood up for, but the curriculum have to align vertically, horizontally, whichever way you want to slice it, and aligning not just with the science of reading, but also aligning with the structures that we have. Tell me your budget, your schedule, and your curriculum, and I'll tell you what your priorities are. Everything else is just job. So that's how I would answer that.
I would also add that understanding the science of reading and understanding the structure of the English language is very complex. Those of you who know Louisa Moats, and she wrote that seminal article, Teaching Reading is Rocket Science. So this documentary was excellent, outstanding, and very impactful, but I think anybody who is involved with the teaching of reading needs to understand that it is a lifelong commitment to understanding how to do that effectively. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and I absolutely do not know everything there is to know at all. And I think that's where a lot of districts and administrators struggle with that. You need to make this investment. You must make it's not only just money, but it's time, it's teacher training, it's ongoing support, and it is a heavy lift, but it will pay back in spades if we do it correctly. And the good news is that there are districts who are starting to do some of these pieces. There are other states that are doing many of these pieces, universal screening, mandatory teacher training, implementation of science-based curricula, etc. So it's not a simple answer. It's a lot of pieces to a system that hasn't been working for decades.
Thank you. Maria, would you like to add anything? No? Tandra? Thank you. Okay, our next question is, what specific strategies did you use to get the OUSD board to drop balanced literacy?
Direct engagement. I'd say the biggest thing was creating a coalition. So at FULCRUM, we didn't just go, where's Liza? partner Liza Finkelstein, Eric Simon I see here. It wasn't just us. We went with some of you may have gotten these little petition things here. I don't know if you have it or not, but they were up front. If you look on the backside, you'll see some logos. Those are the organizations we went with together. And you will see, it wasn't an accident. There's a Hispanic group on there. There's a Pacific Islander group on there. There's a little bit of everybody. There's the Decoding Dyslexia, the Dyslexia Alliance for Black Children. There's Mills College. Because if you go separately, you'll get picked off. Black folks, they look at us coming and say, oh, well, they're just angry. I'm just telling them, this is the stereotype. It's the angry black man or black woman. If it's white folks, they say, oh, here come the privileged moms. They just talk. If it's Latino folks, they say, oh, well, they're just second language advocates. I mean, everybody is put into a little box. But if you go together, it changes the calculus of the advocacy. They don't really know what to do with that. You take that and you deal with the facts. So when I always start the advocacy, I'll close with this. With the superintendents, first question I always ask is, so why do you think the kids aren't reading? First question out the box. And the answers are stunning. Well, actually, you probably know the answers. Mm-hmm. You know what they're going to say, right? There's poverty, there's the pandemic, even before the pandemic, trauma, that's the big trauma. I'm like, trauma, you know who you're talking to? You know what our kids have been through? Historically, and even today, just walking around, that's the reason why they can't read it. So, but when you ask the question straight up, people are confronted with themselves and their beliefs. And everybody's vulnerable to their best self. If you say, hey, and here's the last thing I say, you do know that in Seaford, Delaware, they went from the lowest in the state to the highest in the state. You do know in Lane, Oklahoma, they did this. You do know in Goose Creek, Kentucky, at the foot of the Appalachians, where you have poor whites and the opioid epidemic ravaging, you do know that they've now been 90% of the kids. They were at 21, now they're 90, and you know they're all doing kind of the same stuff. So you got to give people something to be curious about and give them a pathway to their best self. I think advocacy starts with that, as well as just making sure that you go together as an individual. Anybody else want to tackle that?
So a related question. The data is clear that balanced literacy is ineffective in teaching kids to read. Why do you think it is so hard to change minds about this? Kathy, do you want to take a stab at that one?
I think a big piece of it comes from how you were first taught how to teach reading. I know that for myself, that's what has stuck with me even to this day. So if you were first taught through balanced literacy or top-down approach, where you're focusing on comprehension and vocabulary, and it's kind of like, I don't know, there was just some connection that that's the way that it needs to be done. So it's very difficult to then undo that. But I will say, through professional development and teacher training, like some of the ones that I've done, that I've led, and kind of when you walk people through all the pieces, sometimes they get emotional because they're like, I didn't know what I should have known, and they know the kids that they couldn't teach, or couldn't get through. And most every teacher wants to be successful, and they want to teach every kid, So.
I can add a little just from my own experience I was part of the early literacy cohort in Oakland Unified. And one thing that kind of happened when we first were switching over and getting rid of Lucy, and some of the pushback came from, there wasn't an emphasis on all 5 pillars. There was a strong emphasis from the district professionals on phonics, and that was it. There was not a strong emphasis on the need for the phonemic awareness and what exactly that entails. building into fluency, and then how that goes into vocabulary and comprehension. A lot of teachers were very concerned that we were just throwing comprehension to the wind, and that we should only worry about phonics and that's it. And then when they got to 3rd grade, okay, they can decode they could decode a Harry Potter book, but they don't know what in the world it means, because we also need to focus heavily on vocabulary and comprehension in meaningful ways. And that was not how it all kind of started in OUSD, and it's moving in that direction now that we just this year implemented the new curriculum, but we're still finding that all pieces of the curriculum are not perfect, and the input from teachers has not along the way been extremely authentic. I feel like Kareem, you would agree with that. There was a pilot steering committee with teachers of choosing curriculums, but it had seemed that there was already a top-down decision of which curriculums that they wanted, and they were just going to kind of use this as a confirmation bias to get that curriculum in. So I think a lot of pushback comes from not feeling heard and not feeling respected in the classroom. And all of the teachers that I know want to implement reading and want the students to read. There's no teacher that I've seen who's like, oh, I know that works, but I'm not going to do it. I've never met someone who's just like, no, I'm not going to do what's going to work. I've met people who are like, well, why would we only focus on phonics? It's just the pendulum swinging back and forth. Even though we know that that's not happening anymore, that was the reading wars, but that's maybe where I'm seeing a lot of the pushback from teachers, of feeling like it's just focusing on one pillar, and maybe some misunderstanding of balanced literacy isn't those 5 pillars, to be honest.
I would like to just bring up the fact that as a parent, it looks like cost to me. Paying for training for the teachers, paying for new staff to come in. The reason why they have things for parents to get involved is they have a PTA. We go and voice what we need for our children. The other thing that a lot of parents miss out on is school site councils. They decide with the principal on the funding, where the funding is going. They want to support those things. So by getting involved, not just picking up and talking to your teacher, but going and getting on some of these committees to help support your child by getting the funding that they need. Getting involved with fundraisers, things like that. All of those things add up. And when I see them not doing certain things as a parent, it always comes down to cost.
Moving on to our next question. What types of efforts or actions do you recommend to get teachers' unions on board with this change?
I am our site rep at Core Monster Discovery, so I am heavily in the union. I would say just making it, I think kind of I touched on it already, of making it feel authentic participation from teachers as part of choosing new curriculums, and providing training in the science of reading. Because we were lucky that we had the NAACP and FULCRUM work with us to get training on the science of reading for all of our teachers on site, and that made a huge difference. So really offering support and training that's available and affordable to teachers, where we don't have to just go seek out things on our own, I think. And I know each union is different, but I don't feel like there's a lot of pushback from OEA specifically on the science of reading. Maybe on specific curriculums, but not on the science of reading as a whole. I haven't experienced that in our meetings at all.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, please.
So Berkeley, why don't you all have BFT?
Yeah.
All right, so BFT is an affiliate of AFT, American Federation of Teachers. They've been leading on this for 20 years. They got a position statement. It's online right now. If you Google elements of an effective reading program, it's right there on the website.
Can you speak more closely?
Can you say it again? Can you say that again? Say it again. You should teach your
So Berkeley Unified has BFT. They're an affiliate of AFT. And AFT has been strong on the science of reading for 20 years.
Right.
If you go on their website right now, if you Google elements of an effective reading program, AFT, it'll pop up all the elements, 5 elements. Those are the things. So it's not so much, so people have this idea that, oh, this must be the union. Oh, no, because this is good for teacher retention. This is good for the enjoyment of your child. This is good. So, you know, high school teachers, like if you're a high school history teacher, you actually want to teach high school history, but oftentimes you just teach them reading because they can't read. Teachers want this. They want kids to be able to have these skills, and they want to give them. There's nothing more frustrating for a teacher when you can't do the thing that you want to do, whether it's because of the materials or whatever else is going on. So it's not about how you can get the union to do the union. You just have to make sure the union is informed, is clear about the information and about the options and alternatives. Include them. I went when Oakland Unified adopted a curriculum, EL education, which I didn't like, but it's better than what they had. So okay, it's a step in the right direction. When we met with the president or the CEO of the company. I brought 2 union reps with us so that they can ask their questions. And then afterwards, I pushed them. Yes, you're talking about cultural relevancy. Yes, you're talking about windows and mirrors. I get all that. Yes, and is this going to actually help your membership do their job in a more more efficient way? And so you got to include them. Don't assume that they're not on board. Don't buy into that hype. Include them. Bring them in. Ask key questions. Let them engage both at the district level and beyond. So that's all I would say. Don't make assumptions about the labor partners. They want kids to read. Because kids who can read, believe that they make the whole system work better. You know, and your pension is at stake. Guess what? People opt out because the kids can't read and the conditions are terrible. Well, guess what's going to happen when the school district contracts? It affects everybody.
That's right.
So that's what I say.
Thank you, Kareem. I think we have time for 2 more questions. The next one being, there is a disproportionate number of kids of color identified for special education. What role, if any, has balanced literacy played in this over-identification?
So the statistics are approximately 44% of all students who are found eligible in special ed fall under the category of specific learning disability. And within, so first of all, just pause on that for a second because there are 13 eligibility categories. You know, the other categories can be anywhere from like 5% to 6%. 44%, almost half of every student in special ed is qualified under specific learning disability. Within the qualifying conditions of a specific learning disability is dyslexia, which is a language-based reading disability, reading, writing, and spelling. So, I don't know, those of you might know of Reed Lyon. He's a researcher, has been around for quite a while, but he did research that showed that once schools and districts are engaging in a comprehensive and collaborative MTSS model, multi-tiered system of support, where we are providing the instruction in Tier 1 and Gen Ed, we can actually be reducing the number of students who are referred for special ed up to 70%. And we've seen those reductions in referrals at districts who are implementing and engaging in a collaborative and comprehensive MTSS model with curriculum that we know is aligned with the science of reading with universal screening happening. So when you put all the pieces together, there are always going to be students who are going to need special ed, and you can never delay or deny them that type of referral. However, we have way too many kids who end up there because we're not teaching them, a majority of them, how to read well.
Yes.
I got Judge Hagan from Maria and Tandra. Would you like to add anything, Kareem?
Yeah, I have something. A lot of kids. Okay. First of all, Kathy is no joke. I've seen her in action at the State House advocating for best practices, advocating for screening for dyslexia. It takes a lot to be able to risk, because everybody's comfortable in their own environment, with your faculty, with your colleagues, in the lunchroom or whatever, but to be able to step out of that and say, you know what, I'm gonna do what's right, I'm gonna say what needs to be said, even if it means I may not be the most popular person on campus right now. I have a ton of respect for you for that. So I just want to name that. The second thing is, the second thing is, black kids go to special ed oftentimes for behavior.
Right, that's right.
Because they don't diagnose you for your learning difference, because there's no expectation that you're going to learn in the first place. So it doesn't set off alarms. But if you flip a chair, now you must have a special need. Now, now there's a referral coming your way. But until then, especially if you're a girl, you could just sit in the back and be quiet and nobody say a word. So families have a lot of baggage around special ed for a whole host of reasons. A lot of it's cultural and local. But what I will say is this, and this is what I tell folks all the time, which is that diagnosis in your hands is power. It's power. You got the backing of the federal government behind you. That's when you call up the NAACP. We like, man, let us know. Because you now have, on paper, some rights that have been delineated that they have to respect. Now, here's the game that they won't tell you. So these referrals to special ed, you get classified. So the folks that have money get a special ed attorney. There's an actual kind of attorney, that's all they do. And the district sees them coming, right? And what they do is they'll say, well, look, okay, we're gonna offer your child a placement at what's called a non-public school. Man, there's some people who hate me even saying this right now. That's $25,000 to $50,000 a year tuition. We're gonna pay for it for free. Just sign this non-disclosure agreement so that the rest of the folks out there won't know. That's the game y'all may not know. It happens all over. Folks with the advocacy get that option. The rest, whether it's because of a behavior referral, because they don't have resources to get a lawyer or whatever, or there's nobody like Greta on their team, they just SOL. Good luck to you. So, special ed is a whole animal unto itself. But you could actually keep kids from going. They wouldn't maybe necessarily need the services if we taught it in tier 1, if we taught reading correctly from K1-2 in core classroom instruction. However, if your child is behind, you gotta get them tested. You gotta get them tested. They're gonna delay, they're gonna deny, they're gonna say this, that, and the other. Listen, that's when you pass the hat around the family and say, listen, we're trying to get this test. I had to do it. Okay, that's when you go all in, because that is power in your hands. And you just have to message it to parents like that, for them to understand, no, this isn't just some exclusionary thing that's tied to the past. No. If done correctly, it's power in your hand. You can go there and advocate for your child, whether it's in a non-public school or even your rights within the current system.
Thank you so much. Last question, unless someone has anything to add about the disproportionality question. Okay. My high school student has always struggled with reading. Is it too late for him? Can I give that one to you, Tandra? We haven't heard your voice in a while.
Never too late. Never too late to start learning. You can begin today, and it will change that child's life. So I would say a simple answer: no, it's never too late.
Anyone want to say more? Well, that was our last question for this evening. I want to, again, extend a sincere thank you for your time, for being here with us this evening and answering questions from our audience. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.